from those people up into the Babylonians, on into the situation where the Babylonians actually brought the Hebrew children into captivity, that there was a point in that time where the Hebrews became mixed with the Babylonians, and that's where you get the term Jews from, because it's a mixture. It's not a true Hebraic lineage. Well, the Essenes became the mystical teachers of wisdom, and when they did, that information became more of healers and things like that, but those Essene secrets seemed to be maintained by somebody who was wanting the person called the Messiah to ride in and make them, the rulers of the world. They didn't want to be second in command to the Romans. Well, when Jesus did not come preaching that I'm going to do this, he said, my kingdom is not of this world. Well, that just really made the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes, and all those people really upset with him, because they wanted to rule the world in a materialistic area. Well, once you find out that Judas Iscariot, his name actually meant assassin. Well, you can look at what the assassin temple, you can look at the mystic Shriners, you can look at all that. They all go back to these Essene kinds of symbols and worship and that kind of thing. So it was interesting for me to see that apparently Jesus had chosen someone from those secret societies to be a part of his apostles. And he knew that Judas was going to betray him. The problem is that Satan, in using these people, was hoping that he was fixing to get rid of the problem. He did not realize that it would not be them that would kill him, because on the cross, Jesus said, I commend my spirit. It doesn't say he died. It says he commended his spirit to his Father, and he gave up the ghost. Big difference in somebody killing him, because he had the capability to walk off and say, I don't have to, go through this or whatever. But to be able to save mankind, he had to die. Well, it backfired in Satan's face. And so the Essene, from which the Judas Iscariot had come, of course, he went and hung himself over the 30 pieces of silver, because he realized, he had really, what he had done, he realized that was the Son of God. And interesting enough, the people that met Jesus sometimes did not know him, who were the actual Pharisees and Sadducees and people like that. But yet the demons, when Christ would, talk to them and run them out of people, they would say, why have you come before the time? Why are you here to torture us? So they knew that there was going to be a time line in which Jesus would come and he would be a Messiah, because they were confused as to, what are you doing here now? This is not right. The timeline's not right. So they knew him even before man knew him. So once Jesus died, he was wrapped in a sheet, and that sheet was made of linen cloth, and he was put in a tomb. And of course, on the third day, he rose. And when Mary Magdalene and some of the other apostles went into the area where he was supposed to be buried, they found the tomb was totally empty, and that there was the face napkin that was on his face, and the linen cloth that was folded and put to the side. Well, I believe that the linen cloth and the face napkin are what today are the shroud of Turin, and the face napkin that's been kept in Spain, because that napkin matches the blood stains that's on the shroud of Turin, is what it's called. But I was like, how in the world did the Vatican end up with that piece of material? And how did Spain have the face napkin? So all that made me wonder, who was involved in this? Why didn't the Christians hold on to it? How did they get to become Catholics and that kind of thing or whatever and get it to the Vatican? So interesting enough, I went back and looked at just what happened to the Essenes. Well, their particular area there in the Qumran community where they wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, where actually everything was just totally destroyed around 70 A.D., and the Romans just kind of took care of everything. Well, when the Romans allowed the Christians back in, they did not allow the secret society group, the secret people like the Pharisees, Sadducees that had fought against them because they were wanting world dominion to come back in. So all of a sudden something came kind of out of nowhere, and it was called the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar tried to be, in history, they're kind of patted on the back as trying to help the pilgrims go back and be able to visit the site of the old Solomon's Temple site, is what it was, the old temple. And so they tried to appear as the good people who were helping the pilgrims make their pilgrimage back and be able to visit into that area. But what they were really doing, once you do the research on it, they themselves were in there on that Temple Mount and that site trying to get their hands on every bit of Christian, what I call relics that had been maintained at that time. And we know that, as far as the Ark of the Covenant, that has never been found, supposedly, although I mentioned in my research about where I believe that's at and why it's where it is. Also, the things like there were certain bones and replicas, bones and things that were kept by these people, and I believe that the cloth of Edessa had actually been moved into the wall of Edessa during those fights of the Templars and that kind of thing, and that they had found that cloth in that wall. And the cloth was supposed to be that if you looked upon it, that you could receive healing. And so I believe that they knew that that was the cloth that Jesus Christ had actually resurrected through. And if you do the research on the Shroud of Turin, which there is so much research that's been done, it's actually the most researched relic in all of history, that it appears that a body that had been crucified actually went through that cloth. There was some kind of electromagnetic radiation that went through that cloth, and it left an image of a perfect image of a man on there. And so I believe the cloth of Edessa that the Knights Templar found, and that's what they were trying to get their hands on, that became in their possession, and they kept it in their possession. And the interesting thing is the Grail lore legends that were written by the Knights Templar talk about that there was a King Arthur, and I explain it in my book that there was a King Arthur, and if you study the things of Camelot and that kind of thing, you find out that the intent was that once King Arthur lived, that he would return again as a child to claim his kingdom back, and that it would be done something through a holy grail, some type of blood. So that made me do a little bit of research into what the Holy Grail was and the Grail legends, and so that led me into a lot of information looking at how did the Essenes take information to the Rex Dias bloodline, and that was supposed to be the God-King bloodline or the King-God bloodline. And then you find that there was always also connections between them and the Friarity of Zion. And if you look at what they were worshiping, they were not worshiping Mary, the mother of Jesus. They were worshiping something called the Black Madonna. And the Black Madonna goes all the way back into the Egyptian worship of Isis and Osiris.
Okay, now here's a good place for us to stop because we got a little under a minute before we have to take a break here. And when we come back, I'll have you finish that part up. This is absolutely fascinating. Dr. Joy, this is just, I cannot tell you how fascinating all of this is. For those of you who are listening, Dr. Joy will be back with us in the next hour. Her website is drjoye.com. Please go there, check it out. And then when we come back after the break, we're going to continue on our conversation with Eden, the knowledge of good and evil. Dr. Joy, this is absolutely fascinating. We'll pick up here when we come back with the story of Isis and Osiris and the Jesus Christ, and we're going to move it into the present time. You guys don't go away. We'll be right back.